Welcome. This is Samantha Skelly, and you are listening to the Hungry for Happiness podcast, where we dig deep and discover how to reconnect into your body, heal your relationship to food, and finally feel the liberation and freedom you desire. Kleenex is encouraged, and pants are optional. What's up, Phoenixes, and welcome to episode number 16. I am Samantha Skelly, your host, and today on the podcast, I have one of my mentors who I literally cannot say enough good things about this man. He has changed my life in so many ways. I am endlessly grateful for the amount of love, support, care, and attention that he's poured into me since the beginning of, since I met him, really. I remember him saying to me when I was first starting Hungry for Happiness, he grabbed my hand, he looked me in the eyes, and he went, "I believe in you." And it was a moment, it's a moment that I remember every single time I feel like I'm pushing boulders uphill. So in this particular episode, Neil and I talk about relationships. He has a beautiful relationship with his wife. We talk about childhood wounds, appreciation. Neil has this beautiful wisdom around creating intimacy through conscious connection. He gives beautiful insight to his marriage with Hunter, his wife of over 30 years, and teaches us how to just slow down so we can invite more ease into our relationships. Neil is the founder and executive director of the Simply Music Institute of Learning and Education and the creator of Simply Music Piano Method. Born in Melbourne in Australia in 1957, Neil began studying piano at the age of 7 and has spent most of his life actively involved in playing-based music learning. He is deeply in love with his wife and spends his time traveling, running Simply Music, creating, building relationships, and coaching. He also plans on living until he is 150, which is so awesome. I really hope you enjoy this episode. What's up, Phoenixes, and welcome back to the Hungry for Happiness podcast. My body feels super activated and excited today as I have this incredible human with me today, Neil Moore, who is one of my mentors, a man that has, inspired me, helped me grow, helped me see my light. One thing that I remember him saying to me, he looked me in the eye one time and he said, "I believe in you." And it's like even just saying those words right now, it's like I feel the shivers because I still have the visceral association to when you did that. And it was beautiful. And it's something that I think of often when I hit resistance or I hit trouble or whatever that may be. And so I appreciate that. And it's and I feel that. So thank you. And thank you for being here with us.
Completely my pleasure. You're awesome. This is fun.
So I know it's great. It's great. So the first question I want to ask you that we ask all our guests on the show is, what is the number one thing about life that makes you feel most alive?
Oh my gosh. The fact that I have one.
There we go.
One of the things that I appreciate about myself is the practice that I've developed of appreciating the fact that I have a life. And I'll give you an example. When I first came to the United States, I'm from Australia. I've been in the United States since the mid-90s, 1994. I came over to the US to set up my company from here. In the early years, it was a really intense time. I mean, it's always intense, but it was that early stages of concentration where everything was being put in place and I had just so much to do, and I was working a good 20 plus hours a day. I had an office, downtown in Sacramento, and I'd had a day where there was just so many things happening. And I came out of my office, it was about 2 a.m. There were no cars on the road. That time of the middle of the night when it feels like you might be the only person who's walking the back of my office where my car was parked, the only car left in the car park. And there's one of those big industrial waste bins. And this was the recycled bin. And I could, as I'm walking to my car and I'm completely in my head about all that I've got to do, and I hear what I think was a homeless person in the big industrial waste bin, maybe making their bed for the evening. And I was thinking, gosh, I wonder what that person wakes up to. Tomorrow morning when they wake up, what's the future that they perceive? What's the future that gives them their experience of the present. And it's like, how dare I walk out of my office in the middle of the night because I've got so many things to do? How dare I complain about having too many opportunities?
Right.
It's like, never again, never from this day forward will I ever complain about having too much to do or being overwhelmed. And, lots of ways that I practice appreciation. One, by just stopping for a moment and just breathing and getting present to, oh gosh, I mean, I don't have a problem in my life that's not a first world problem. No one. I mean, there are populations of people that would trade all of their problems for any of mine.
I appreciate your simplicity with appreciation. And it's funny that your company is called Simply Music, but it is that it's like you have this like beautiful way of making it easy. It's like some of the things that you say and the ways that you describe how you appreciate life are actually like seemingly insignificant things, yet have a profound impact on your happiness.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
I appreciate that about you.
Thank you.
So I just want to continue to talk about appreciation for just a second, because I would love for you to share what are some of the things that you do to cultivate that energy of appreciation. Is it something that you do consciously and you think about every single day, or does it just come naturally to you?
Eventually both.
Okay.
Yeah, both. And that's something that I've done for a long time. For a very, very long time. And so it's quite invisible for me now. And I think as a practice, the great thing about the developing the discipline, and I want to say discipline, I think firstly, before we talk about appreciation, we should talk about discipline.
All right, let's do it.
Typically, discipline is thought of as being like that, someone's very disciplined. But it's not really the etymology of the word. Discipline ultimately is about being a disciple. And being a disciple it asks that you surrender to something. And to surrender to something, not to relent, but to surrender to something is a choice based on an act of love. So to me, discipline is an act of love. It's a matter of freely, willingly giving oneself to the action and experience of something. And I have found that in giving myself to the act of consciously experiencing appreciation, there's such a payback from that. The reward for that is so much more vast than the investment. The longevity of the experience is so much greater than the input that it takes. It's so worth it.
I love that. I love that.
So worth it that it doesn't even feel like a practice if you continue it as a practice.
Yeah.
That transition I have found occurs very quickly.
Do you find when you're doing this that it's more of a body experience of like truly feeling it rather than thinking it? And the reason why I ask you that is I have a lot of people who go like, I tried gratitude, I tried appreciation. That just doesn't work for me, and I think it's because they're keeping it at a very logic level and just thinking about the things that they're grateful for or they appreciate. And the sense that I'm getting is like, for you, it's a very body visceral, even when you talk about it, it's like, I can sense your body is involved in it.
Yeah.
Is that true for you?
It's both.
Okay.
There are certain things that I appreciate that I experience very viscerally. Like my relationship with Hunter. And it's both, but there's no question that there's a physical experience about that. I'm very impacted by that which I consider to be beautiful, which for me is vast. I mean, by and large, I think, the human part of us is by and large a broken species in spite of what we accomplish, but there's a beauty to the tragedy of that. And that's something that that I have both a sympathy to and an empathy for. I appreciate the fact that I love the beauty of the tragedy of humanity, and I feel that in my body.
how did you come to that place? I think it's very common for us to look at all the tragedy and go like, and quite frankly, disconnect from it rather than love it. And I think that creates a lot of separation, of course, within our bodies, but with each other in the planet. So I'd love to hear, like, what is your belief? What is your framework around how you came to a place of truly being able to appreciate the tragedy?
Well, the paradox to that answer, probably the most authentic and accurate answer to that would be, I don't know.
Okay.
But but there's also things that I think have contributed to that. And I've also found, and probably it's developing a perspective of appreciation in a quite complete manner that I think has brought me to that place. No question, it has an enormous amount to do with my own views of myself and coming to a place of understanding that I had experiences. I made decisions about myself and the world as a result of those experiences. They gave me a particular lens through which I observed my life. That lens effectively, cast a picture that I lived into, which in turn reinforced that experience. Some of those things served me. Many of those things didn't serve me. If I was going to come to develop a relationship with those things that didn't serve me, I got that it wasn't about a relationship with trying to change that. I've come to a place where it's like I'm okay being accomplished and flawed. I'm okay with being creative and broken. I'm okay. I'm okay with and at peace with being powerful and a hurt child.
Powerful and a hurt child. Do you associate with your hurt child? Do you talk to the little boy inside of you?
Yes, I do. And I have a particular visual image of myself as a child that I reference to that. I always remind that child that I'm there, that I'm coming to get him, that I'm, that I take my arms, that I hold him and I love him.
That's beautiful. And so I just love to touch on this piece just for a moment. What I find a lot is we have our adult self, this version of us, and then we have our inner child who may be wounded and scared and having a shit fit inside of our bodies, and I think a lot of tension and anxiety comes from the fact that those two pieces are not integrated. Like our woman man self is just so completely disconnected from that little scared child having a shit fit. And so
I call that resist and resent.
Resist and resent. Oh, beautiful. Oh, wow. I like that. I'm curious. I would love to know, this has been part of my work over the last couple of years, is like really finding out how can I integrate those two pieces so I'm being responsible about my experience with other people. So it's not coming from my wounded child. It's actually coming from my place of my woman self. And I'm curious to what do you do to integrate those two pieces and to really be the parent to that child?
It's a fantastic question. What I love about, many of your questions, I get back to, yes, the honest and authentic answer is I'm not exactly sure. And I'm happy to not know. I'd rather be sitting in that question all the time, rather than feeling that there's an importance to answering that question.
Thank you. Great.
That's one thing. The second thing about it is I do believe that it's fed by what you were asking about earlier. Are there practices that I have that have brought me to a place of appreciation? And it's the cultivating of those simple, really basic and structured practices that keep me in a place of appreciation. And I find that when I'm in that place, it's a lot easier to include myself in the mix. In fact, it's a pretty tough ask to expect somebody to really have the experience of appreciation for the conditions and the circumstances of their life, having not cultivated that for themselves.
Ooh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
And so how do you cultivate that? for yourself? Well, ultimately, I think there are several things, without question, no matter how you get at it, and I think there's all sorts of ways of getting at it, without question, it is an act of love. It takes a high level of consciousness, developing a high level of both emotional, psychological, and physical sensitivity, because there's chemistry associated to those feelings of our brokenness, and developing a sensitivity to how that experience impacts us. It requires an act of, I'll just call it saint-like forgiveness.
Yeah.
Being a saint to oneself.
Absolutely. The journey of self, the journey to be our own best friend and to love ourselves unconditionally, no matter what, loving ourselves through the pain and the trauma and the sadness and the anger and the rage is the work, is one of the most beautiful things. And I think, the term of like, you need to accept yourself, you need to accept yourself is so, we hear that all the time.
Yeah, overused.
Overused. And I think I honestly believe that people assume that acceptance means they have to like it. It doesn't mean you have to like it. You just have to accept it.
Yes,
and
exactly.
From that place of acceptance, then we can see the change. And so it's, and this is a huge theme in my community with women who are in a fight with food in their bodies, is the thought of accepting their bodies at the weight that they're at it's like they have no frame of reference to what that even feels like or looks like. And so when I come in and say, we have to start from a place of acceptance, if you actually want sustainable transformation, it's like, it's hard to wrap your head around that.
Well said.
And so I would love to ask you, because you went through this transformation. A beautiful.
Although, when you say went through, I don't consider it to be a past tense thing, and I don't expect nor need to be a past tense thing. I mean, the fact of the matter is that we tend to think of ourselves as, the child, the broken child, and here I am now. And it's as if just in the articulation and the languaging of that, it creates a separation.
Yeah.
One valid and defensible interpretation is that there are no adults. There are children who got older.
Oh, I love that.
And so really it's a continuum. It's one experience, that you are that child. You are what, yesterday is still with you, as is last week, as is last month, as is last year, as is last decade, as is that incident that you think of as happening then when you were something that you're not now, but you are. You're with the totality of the journey. And so to be able to say there's this component of the journey that I don't want, it would be like resenting your arm. Or a leg.
I love that.
To me, and much of what we call accept is, like I said, it's resist and resent. It's like, okay, it's almost as if we are victimized by the need to accept something, rather than accept as a conscious ontological practice is a powerful and complete loving embrace. It is the totality of it. It's all my life. Every bit of it is my life.
Oh my God.
It doesn't matter where I go, where I've been doesn't go anywhere other than with me. It only lives because I give it existence.
Oh my gosh. I literally have tears in my eyes. That is beautiful. That is beautiful. And I know this is touching so many people right now, because it's so, when we hate our bodies, it's so easy to just disconnect, get in that stress response of like flight, and just like disconnect. I don't want anything to do with that. Taking action out of fear, shaming our way skinny, using restrictive and binging tactics to just like disconnect and numb. And how you package that and what you just said was so incredibly beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you still view that part of the 3-year, the version of you 3 years ago as that's just you. That's just who you are. Absolutely. I love that. I love that so much.
Absolutely. I mean, I can look at any of those things, even if I were to go back, and I know this is a separate conversation, but if I were to reminisce over the experiences that I had, when I look back and I say that experience, I had a relationship to that experience, and that relationship and that I had to that experience had a lot of pain associated with it. And, and I consider, that to be a version of, this isn't the right word, but let's just say that broken part of the flawed part, which none of it really is at all. But let's just to say that's the relationship with it. I can also look at everything that I have achieved that I consider to be important to me and has been important to others, none of which would have happened were I not that person. At the end of the day, I'm not going to change one leaf on one tree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
That which I do love, and that which I do consider to be important, if I'm going to blame an experience in an incident, I've got to have the courage to blame the awesomeness that came from it as well.
Beautiful. You know what came to mind when you just said that, and I'm not a mother, I don't have children, but what came to mind is like all the women in my community who are mothers and hate their bodies, but their bodies have created life. They've created these beautiful children who are in the world. Like, how can you hate that? How can you hate that? That's what came to mind when you shared that.
Yeah. Well, and when we say, you're not a mother, you're not a mother to an external child, right?
You're right.
That does not mean that you can't absolutely and don't absolutely practice the passion and the extraordinary authenticity and creativity of mothering oneself.
This is true. This is true. I've become very good at mothering myself in the last couple of years, which has been the best practice and the best journey back to self that I've ever taken, and was beautiful. And it's kind of funny, actually. On the weekend, I was the temporary mother to my girlfriend's newborn child. I had her for about 4 hours. And it made me realize I'm not going to have kids for another 10 years.
It's not for everybody.
It's a beautiful thing. It's so incredible. And even spending 4 hours with a child, I was like, respect to the mothers out there. Like, this is not easy.
Yeah.
So incredible. So one of the things I admire about you, Neil, and I tell you this all the time, and it's a topic of our conversations, and it's something that you help me with, is your intelligence around relationships and connection. You have an incredible wife who I have had the pleasure of meeting and spent some time with. And oh gosh, she's amazing. I would love. There's a lot of women in my community who are single, who really deeply want a relationship, who can't quite figure it out. And this is a huge topic. And I just want to, I want to kind of, as we're talking about like mothering the self and mothering our inner child, I would love to just start like, when we are looking for intimacy, when we're looking for connection with another being, may it be a woman or a man, doesn't matter. What are some of the beliefs and practices that we can do on ourselves to prepare us for that connection?
Well, I need to establish a context to be able to address that. If I can just frame it a little bit in my own relationship.
Yeah, please.
Incidentally, I have this new computer, and somehow or other it's making sounds when things come through, and I haven't figured out how to turn that off.
That's okay. That's life. That's life. We're just rolling with the punches here.
I met my wife. She had just turned 12 and I had just turned 13.
Isn't that crazy?
Had a completely unique, visceral experience the moment that I met her. And I've never lost that experience, that physical visceral experience. That was 17,042 days ago today.
17,042 days ago. It's so...
and then, we've been married, as committed partners for 37 years and married for 35 and 3 adult children. And she is incredible. Like, she's a very remarkable human being. I've never met anybody like her. And, at 58 years of age, she has the wisdom of someone who's mined the experience and the experiences of their life, such that she's been able to learn about herself and others and bring that to her experience of how she greets each day. And having had 58 years to practice that, and she has the experience of mothering for decades and being a grandmother, in that wisdom of how she carries herself through life as a 58-year-old. But she has the physicality. In fact, she has the body of an athletic 20-year-old. She has energy of a vibrant teenager, and she has the authenticity of a child.
Mm.
And
I love
who
that.
she is. I've seen the way she gets out of bed
Mm-hmm.
and the way she just moves through life, regardless of what, the peaks and plateaus and valleys are,
Yeah.
which everybody has.
Yeah.
I've watched her do that decade after decade after decade after decade. And
Mm.
it's extraordinary to just, and extraordinary to be loved by a woman. How can I possibly, how could I be possibly unhappy when I'm so loved? So that's an amazing thing. Having said that, there are certain things that we do to stay connected to our love. Part of the challenge when people ask us about our relationship, and look, I get everyone has their own interpretation and their own worldview and their own belief systems, and I love to love all of them for what they are for people. But if I look at my own belief system, as much as I approach each moment of each day as though it's alive and fresh and happening, and I'm causing and creating my experience of life right now. I'm making choices, I'm making decisions, I'm taking this direction, I'm handling things this way. I've got a future that I envisage and imagine, and I sort of I practice and implement those things which I believe move me forward to that. So, I'm responsible for the life that I create. That's how it feels going this way. Any point of time when I stop and I just turn around and look back, I can't but help think of it as though there hasn't been divine design at play.
Yes.
I just can't. And that's the case for both of us. For both of us, we feel as though we were brought together. It was meant to be. And, I know that perspective and interpretation is not for everybody, but it is for us. When we look at others and we look at the degree of complexity in their relationships, when we look at the challenges that they have, how hard they sometimes have to work at those relationships. I have deep admiration and respect and appreciation and empathy for that. But a lot of that we don't experience. And I think that there are certain things about that can be explained. In many, many ways, we are alike. And that makes it quite easy. There's a lot of easiness when you are very alike. And we like a lot of the same things. And so that makes it very, very easy too. And so if one of us like Chinese and the other like French, okay, let's compromise. We'll go to the Chinese restaurant I'm only making this up, but we'll go to the Chinese restaurant and I don't want to go there, but I should because we've got to compromise. And she'll come to the French restaurant, doesn't really want to go there, but she will because she compromises. If you have a relationship filled with those areas where there's not a high level of alikeness, there's a lot of compromise that has to take place. And that's a whole other type of behavioral practice that's needed. In relationships where there's a high level of alikeness, depending on the type of ways in which you're alike, in many of the ways if you're alike, it makes for a very easy relationship. And one of the things that's great about liking the same things is that I'm of the view that the like aspect of relationships is misunderstood. It's underappreciated. That we tend to have focus on love, and I don't think that's. I think it's in some respects. This is harsh, but somewhat misguided. That the fundamental state of being for human being is love, and then we put the human on top of it. But the state of being for the being is a state of love. Way. So, finding love and being present to love is not a complex thing. It's not really a matter of how do I get, turned on to that. It's a matter of looking at where have I got the off switches turned on? How many off switches have I got that I've activated? How have I taken myself out of the game by turning on the off switches?
Absolutely.
Which I think is the same in physical intimacy. We're looking at how do I get turned on? It's not about getting turned on. It's about looking at where you turn yourself off.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I find it really interesting. Like you were talking about how your and Hunter's relationship is flowy and, for lack of a better word, like easy, and there's an alikeness there. And then there's other relationships that are tumultuous and hard. And in the spiritual community, there's this concept of like relationships are like containers and hotbeds for healing. And we get in relationships and we grow from them and it's hard. And it's like, I don't I don't want that. Like, I literally do not want that. Like, I look at you and Hunter and I go, wow, that's beautiful. You guys are like a team. You know, you once said to me, like, I just really like her, you know, I just really like her. And I went, wow. And when you said that, I was with, I was dating a guy and I just was honest with myself. I'm like, I don't even fucking like this guy, you know, like I love him, but I don't like him.
Yeah.
And so that's beautiful. And so I think it's okay for your relationship not to be the container where all of your healing and all of your shit comes up. Like we can do that. And correct me if I'm wrong, because you're a lot more wiser on this topic than I am. But I feel anyways that I have a responsibility as a human to show up for my community, to show up for my family and friends. And for myself to grow and to constantly be growing. And I want my relationship to be the soft landing space, the like the comfort, the fun, the ease alongside all of the stuff that I'm doing on my own. You know?
I get it. You know, I mean, it's that difference, that experiential difference between working at a relationship as distinct from being in a relationship that works.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Well, it's the difference between working at a relationship as distinct from being in a relationship that works.
That is okay. I love that. And I'm all for being in relationships that work.
Well, then, you know, the problem with that is the question is, well, okay, how do you do that? How do you get
Right. Do you think it has anything to do with the fact that, and this belief system comes up everywhere in life, but it's like, for it to be good, it has to be hard, right? Like that's a very common belief that we have. May it be making money? You know, if you want to make a lot of money, it's got to be hard. If you want a successful business, it's got to be hard. Do you think that translates into relationships as well?
I just don't subscribe to that.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that people can't be in hard circumstances and grow from them and create great value out of it. But it's one of those things where, you know, someone will say, I've been poor and I've been rich and, you know, I prefer this. I prefer rich. And it's like, you know, if you've been in a hard relationship and one where there's a high degree and high level of ease, it's an entirely different experience. And that's, you know, I'm pretty interested in that.
Totally. Absolutely. I know you have, we've touched on this before, maybe one of our times we went for dinner or something, but there's practices that you and Hunter do on the daily to like reignite the connection. And I think there's a lot of people listening to this podcast right now who are in a relationship, but feel alone, lonely in the relationship.
Yes.
You know, and you have a way, I know you do it with me, you do it with, you know, the communities that we're in, you do it with Hunter, of just creating like conscious connection, being proactive about creating connection with humans. And you're so good at this. And so I would love for you to share, like, what are some of those things that you and Hunter do on a regular basis, on a daily basis, to just really let each other know, like, I'm here for you. I got you. Here I am. What are some of those?
Yeah, thank you. Well, there's a couple of things about that. Firstly, it does connect with what we were saying before about likability. And one of the things that I think is great about liking your partner is that oftentimes there's an ethereal quality to what we consider love to be. Frankly, I've had this conversation with a great many people about, you know, what is love? I've never heard an answer that to me stands up to much scrutiny. I think it's so elusive what love actually is.
Yeah.
Yes. Saying, you know, what is and where is God? Well,
yeah.
You know, and I don't mean for this to be a God conversation, but you know, what is love? I'm not really sure that I experience it, but to articulate what it is, that is extraordinarily elusive.
For sure.
For me. Having said that, I also do believe that we don't need to work on love because it's there. What we've got to look at is what have we put in the way of it.
Beautiful.
What I love about liking someone is that whilst we can live a life in the experience of love, it's the liking of a person in relationship that you bump up against moment by moment, hour by hour, day by day. And it's the simple things that play out in the physicality of our lives that we like or don't like so much, where a lot of the annoyances come out of. And so when it comes down to likability, what I love about that is that it very clearly and with easy definition puts the ball back in my court, because I can work on being likable. I can work on that. I mean, I can ask the question, sweetheart, would you just tell me one thing, just one thing that I could do that would leave you with the experience of me being a better husband?
Oh, that's such a beautiful question.
It's a great thing to ask your children.
Yes. Yes.
What is one
yes.
thing, just one thing I could do? Tell me one thing that would leave you with the experience that I was a better parent to you.
That's so beautiful.
Now, oftentimes when one person asks another person of that, the other person sometimes is a little embarrassed or reluctant to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Sometimes it's used as a weapon. Well, let me tell you a few things.
Yeah.
If the question is asked authentically and the question is answered authentically, you're going to be provided with something you can actually, well, it then comes down to am I willing? And when I'm talking about free will, it's like, I think that's a misunderstood term. I don't mean choice. I mean, in free will, are you in a position where you would allow both your body and your spirit to partner to be bigger than your mind?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Act in a way that's bigger than who you consider yourselves to be. And so that's an important practice. And you can work on likability. And working on likability, I mean, it counts for so much. The payoff is so vast. That's one thing, right? Now, do you need to say something, or can I keep going here, Elizabeth?
I just want to say one little thing about the how can I be a better husband? I think I've heard you say this before. I think this is one of the things that you've taught me, and so I actually use this practice with my girlfriend, who Rebecca.
Yes.
I asked her. I said,
Yes.
What can I do for you to be a better friend? And it was one of the most beautiful conversations we had ever had, because I really understood what she likes to make her feel loved. And so I just wanted to thank you for that, because now that you're saying that, that was definitely something I got from you. So continue.
Yeah. So in the context of my relationship with Hunter, as you can imagine, I mean, we've operated businesses together. We've had years on end where we've been together 24/7, like literally, in Australia, we own restaurants. And, that's an industry where it's like early morning till early morning, every day. And so that quality of being around one another and liking one another is, we're well practiced at that. And we've both been gifted by the pleasure of one another's company over decades. But you can imagine, after 17,042 days, the ease and the familiarity that is experienced, which is a beautiful and a wonderful thing, just that ease. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it leaves us with the experience that we're both, we're just, a masculine and a feminine expression of the one genetic assembly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Having said that, it's easy to take one another for granted, so to speak.
Sure. For sure.
And so for us, oftentimes the temperature of our relationship, while very, very, very easy and very comfortable temperature, sometimes it's more a matter of, I would walk in and it's like, hey, Dale, it's just like that thing that's always a part of my life is still just there.
Yeah.
And we made a decision a long time ago that there's a beauty and a wonderful quality to the familiarity and the ease and the which I think is the critical ingredient. Having said that, our love, the depth of our love, the experience of our love is profound and extraordinary. And so what can we do to have both?
Yeah.
What would it take for us to interrupt the beauty and the ease of the ordinary, for the extraordinariness of the extraordinary? Right? And so rather than that waking up and hopping out of bed and then Hunter gets out of bed and I'm in the shower, it's like, hey, Dale, what's your day like?
Yeah.
Hey, what are you doing? Hey, can you pick this up? Can you do this for me? I'm leaving. Okay, sweetheart, bye. Quick kiss on the cheek and out we go, and then come home. Hey, how was your day? We're talking and doing things. Easy.
Yeah.
But we decided that we wanted more of that. And so one of the things that we took on was as a practice was, what we think of in terms of like resetting our love. Just able to have a reset button and fire up that experience again. And there's a simplicity to that. So instead of just waking up and hopping out of bed, it was more a matter of, can I wake and can I look Hunter in the eye and can I just stop for a second and just check in with myself? I connect with how I feel about this extraordinary human being that I've loved for so long. And can I look her in the eyes and can I just say to her, listen, I want to thank you. Just thank you for everything you've been. Thank you for friendship, and thank you for your love, and thank you for your loyalty, and thank you for your support. I'm privileged to be your partner. It takes a moment to just stop and experience her, be willing to experience the almost intolerable beauty of intimacy, and have that be the energy that starts the day. Am I willing, when I'm leaving, to not say, bye, honey? Am I willing to go up to her and look her in the eye and take her face in my hands and kiss her tenderly as an expression of the gratitude and the appreciation that I have for her? And we've found that energy that gets created from that, the energy that you leave with is the energy you come home to.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And coming home, it's not a matter of, hi, honey, I'm home. It's, can I put my bags down and can we reconnect? And can I look in her eyes and hug her with the ease and the familiarity and all of the likability, but can I be connected to my experience of how much I love her and how deeply and profoundly and complete and extraordinary and beautiful that is. And the simplicity of that, even if it's with a smile, can I communicate to her, that is how I feel about you and that's who you are for me. And when we go to bed, it's not, good night, darling. Can I stop there and can I touch her face? Can I touch her body? Can I touch her hand? And in that love, in that touch, can I communicate who she is for me? And can I thank her again and acknowledge her for who she is for me?
Yeah.
The totality of that experience, that like waking up, leaving, coming home, sleeping, like it's 90 seconds in total, 2 minutes. Yeah. The impact that it has is amazing.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
The impact that it has on now being able to not only surf the wave of our likability, but have it empowered by the current of our love.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Privilege. Just a privilege.
It's such a privilege. And I think taking people for granted, or just having this mindset of like, oh, they're always going to be there, or they've always been there. So, it's okay. I've got them. I think that's where we lose so much intimacy, so much connection, so much. We want to feel loved. We want to feel appreciated. And I think something as simple as that has such a profound impact on you, on her, on your collective love. And then the people that you contact and you serve and you inspire, that simple thing. And I would love to just kind of explore, like, what do you feel is people's resistance to doing something so simple that has such a profound impact?
Well, there's two aspects to that. One of them is that, here we are. It's almost like we're little children. At some point in time, we suddenly are aware of the fact that we've got a life. Like we just got born into this miracle.
Yeah. Yeah.
The more we're learning, the more we're understanding that we haven't got a clue.
I have no idea what, yeah.
I mean, what's not a miracle?
That's true. That's true.
And were we to be truly present to the beauty of that, like I said before, it's intolerable for the human to be with the spirituality of that. But there's an aspect of it where allowing oneself and developing the practice of discovering how to be with intimacy. Let yourself go down deeper and be with that, that experience of love. That asks a lot of a human, even though it's the natural state for the being.
Absolutely. So so our like bio bodies have a resistance to it, but it's all our soul wants is craving is that deep connection, that intimacy. Yeah. Those are the moments I feel most alive, when I completely take my bio body out of the situation, rest my mind, and just go, what does my soul want, and what do I need to believe in order to connect deeper with this person? Yeah. And what do I need to let go of in order to allow myself to be more seen? I think really like that, the question that you asked of like, how can I be a better husband? That's a moment where you decided that you we're welcoming in the truth, and it's like a time to be seen and a time to potentially hear something that maybe you don't want to hear. And I think for a lot of us is, ignorance can be bliss for a lot of us. And I
No,
think,
no question about it. I mean, and
mm,
it opens up, it's one of the things that I think is also critical in a successful relationship. There's lots of things, but one of them is understanding that, the characteristics, because all long-term relationships have 6 components to them.
mm-hmm,
3 of them are qualitative and 3 of them are quantitative. But, in simple conceptual terms, at the end of the day, we understand, or at least we articulate that in any long-term relationship, you are going to have peaks and plateaus and valleys. Times the okay, times the not so.
yeah,
And
yeah,
any of those can be for a brief, or a medium or a long period of time. But if we look at any long-term relationship in any field of endeavor, that you cannot have a long-term relationship unless you understand that you will have peaks and plateaus and valleys, for brief and medium and long periods of time. That you will, and it's not just, oh yes, we know that. Of course, there's an aspect of it where the problem is that we articulate that we know and understand that, but we haven't truly yet learned to, like I said earlier, accept that, a loving embrace around that.
right,
When things aren't right, aren't easy, we automatically go to something's wrong. Whereas in the context of, I can't have a long-term relationship unless I discover who I need to become in order to navigate my way through those valleys. When something goes wrong, there's nothing wrong. That's tremendously right that happened. You're asked to discover who you need to be able to go through that. But we hold it as though something's wrong and something needs to be fixed. And I'm not saying that there isn't an opportunity to, become bigger, brighter, better, because there is. And a lot of that has to do with, am I willing to understand what a privilege it is to authentically apologize, and what an honor it is to authentically forgive.
Oh, I love that. That's so beautiful.
We don't really hold apology and forgiveness in that context, and that's something that we haven't really fully mined for all the value that it has to offer.
A privilege to forgive. That's can you expand on that just a little bit? That's a beautiful thing. I think forgiveness is an interesting thing, because a lot of times we think, like, whether it's internal or external, forgiving the self or forgiving others, it's like they don't deserve to be forgiven. And me personally, I'll speak on my experience. I used to hold a lot of grudges to a lot of people when I was younger, and my story around that, and in relationships, my story around that was like, well, they just don't deserve it. Like, why would I forgive? But it's an act of love towards the self to forgive other people. It doesn't make them right what they did, but it releases that energetic relationship that's negative, and creating that like open loop back into our bodies. I would love to just hear, I would just love to, for us to like pull on that thread of like the privilege of forgiveness. What does that mean to you? And what kind of like liberation are you able to like welcome in because of that privilege?
Yeah. Well, there's a bigness that's required on both, part of both people, the bigness to authentically apologize and the bigness to authentically forgive. Much of what we call forgiveness is by and large still that typical accept, and resent. But even in the nature, I think we misunderstood that when I talk about resent, it's like we're resend. We're sending ourselves back into the past as forgive, giving ourselves forward into the future.
Right.
And so, for me, I don't mean to be that presented as like a cliche phrase. But the truly authentically forgiving does require a willingness, which comes from practice as well, to allow yourself to give yourself fully forward. There really is no future. This would get into a completely different conversation of where we get our experience of the present from. By and large, for most of us, we tend to think that our present, if I ask people, the state you're in right now, where is that coming from? People often describe the current complexities of their circumstances, or they'll talk about the past experiences that they've had that have led them here. One of the things we just don't understand is that our experience of the present is actually coming from the future.
For sure.
We would need to, I'd need to say more about that to fully clarify that. But if we are going to forgive, it does require that we actually step into a future that isn't predicated on what's experienced in the past. And how do you get there? It's a longer conversation, but it is practice.
That'll be podcast number 2. Let's remember that.
There is one other thing that I want to say, because when you asked before, about why is it that we struggle so much with intimacy, I talked about one aspect of it, but there was a second part that I'm not going to be able to really expand on, but I needed to mention it because the answer just feels a little bit incomplete to me. And, there is that aspect of, for all of us, experiences occur for us, and we understand that the way in which we interpret our experiences plays a role in the way in which we live our lives. But ultimately what happens for us is that we make decisions about ourselves and the world. We oftentimes fail to see that those decisions that we make become a lens through which we see the world.
Yes.
And we also fail to see that lens through which we see the world is also a projector. It actually projects and creates the world that we then experience. This is a very complex and extraordinarily simple lens at the same time. And very often we make decisions about ourselves. Almost always those decisions have that quality, and a quality of inadequacy. I'm unlovable, I'm bad, I'm broke, I'm wrong. I'm unloved, always have that quality. And there's extraordinarily powerful chemistry, neurochemistry that's associated with those decisions. We make those decisions when we're very, very young. The pathways that, those corrosive chemicals create very, very deep and powerful neural pathways. And they really have this quality of staying with us. And fundamentally, those decisions that stayed with us about our unlovability, about our inadequacy, about our brokenness, oftentimes the brain experiences it as a violation if we would be present to how much love we have for someone, because it would violate that, our unlovability that we're convinced we are.
Oh my gosh.
I hope I said that in a way. I know
that was beautiful.
There's a lot to say about that.
I would highly recommend you guys reversing it and listening to that again, because that was potent and that was powerful, and it's so interesting. It's like I've been getting really real with my girlfriends, and the majority of my friends feel fundamentally unlovable. It's just what it is. Powerful, incredible, amazing humans, and they feel fundamentally unlovable. So taking that core belief into the context of a relationship, you are going to validate it. You're going to find reasons why that's true. And without the awareness, it's sabotage. Even the most beautiful connections can be sabotaged because of that, which isn't even your belief. It's just something that you've taken on. It's not your truth. It's not who you are. Oh, how are we doing for time here? Oh gosh, we got to both roll. Me and you both. We both got. I love you so much. That flew, Samantha. That flew by. Thank you. Oh, I love you so much, dude. I really do. I really, really, really do.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate your wisdom. I appreciate you sharing all of this with my community. I know they're going to absolutely love this conversation. So it's always a pleasure. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. Where can we find you if we want more of you?
My email's neil@simplymusic.com. You can find out more about what I do in my other world.
Yes.
Visiting simplymusic.com.
Okay. I'm going to put all those links in the show notes. And thank you, my dear. And we will chat soon. Okay.
Bye, love.
Okay. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode on the Hungry for Happiness podcast. You can join the conversation with women just like yourself at hungryonfacebook.com. Until next week, ladies, stay classy and badassy.